Pete Rogers, I'm the chair of the Marshall County Republicans.
I'm Tom Swartz, chair of the Marshall County Democrats.
And we're here because together in coordination with the Secretary of State's office, we're trying to introduce high school age kids in Marshall County's high schools to the process, which is the Iowa Caucus.
And this is a statewide project. Counties all over the state are participating. Joint bipartisan effort by Republicans and Democrats, including the state parties. The students are recruited by the teachers at area high schools here in Marshall County.
Okay. Yeah, the government teachers were all provided the opportunity to participate. There was the Secretary of State, they had an educational classroom curriculum called Caucus 101. This is the Youth Mock Caucus, which is partner with that, but they're related in the same goal, but they're not required that both be utilized by the separate school districts. So
traditionally, this has been done by both Polk County Republicans and Democrats, and they decided to work with the Secretary of State to take it statewide, and both state parties joined in with that because it's important to Iowa. Iowa's role for the future, leading the nation with caucuses, depends on youth participation in the years to come.
Okay, so for people who've never seen a caucus, do you want to explain how it works?
Pete can do the Republican side, I'll do the Democratic side.
We could test each other and try our knowledge.
I've never been to one.
Marshall County Republicans, all Republicans get together in a caucus. That's unique to Iowa in that we don't have a primary for our presidential elections. And what the caucus is, it's sort of a grassroots approach to deciding who's going to get support of area Republicans for the several Republican candidates. I think one of the similarities between both the Democrats and the Republicans is we use the caucus as a time to elect our representation for our county central committees, as well as to elect delegates and alternates to county conventions and things of that sort that move up the line. We also have opportunities to discuss the platform planks. And those are the issues and particular talking points that are important to the grassroots of both parties separately, but that's where it really starts, formulating what ultimately at the state convention becomes the state's party platform. The Republican caucus itself is simply a poll. Everybody gets a ballot, you select the one you want, and those numbers are reported up the pike.
Okay. The Democratic caucus is more physical. We don't have a vote on a ballot. You go stand in the corner of the candidate you support. There's an opportunity for people to shout across the room and try to persuade people to join their groups, and so it gets the blood flowing. And we do have a challenge in that some people find that a little they're too shy to do that in public. So these are political activists that don't mind stating their viewpoints.
Most of the kids, my understanding, are coming to us from their high school government classes. Typically, it's the advanced placement government classes. My understanding, most of the kids that are registered, and I believe we have, 53
yes,
from the three
right.
different high schools? They're juniors and seniors primarily. So some of them will actually be able to vote in the election next November, which means that they'll actually be able to participate not as a spectator or an observer in the actual caucus that occurs February 1st. So these kids are kids that are definitely, I would think it's fair to say that they're more engaged academically and probably more than just academically curious. They're personally curious about what the process is involved with an Iowa caucus. So
I guess just so I know, are there Marshalltown students? Raise your hand. LDF?
It's East Marshall now.
Excuse me.
East Marshall.
Us old guys always say LDF. West Marshall.
Ask them to raise that again.
East Marshall, excuse me. East Marshall. You raised your hand twice. You go. How about West Marshall?
There you go.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. We're honored to have you guys here with us tonight. Just some people that, for your knowledge, who we do have with us tonight also, that'll be taking part as observers. And if you have any questions through the course of the night, I'm sure they would be glad to talk to you about it. We've got House of Representative, the Republican House of Representative Dean Fisher. I don't know where Dean's at.
he had to take off.
Oh, he's in the restroom. He went to the restroom. Okay. We've got Democratic House Representative Mark Smith. Mark. We got the Marshall County Auditor Recorder, Deanne Raymond. Deanne, right. We got Marshall County Supervisor Bill Patton. Good to have you. And my name is Denny Gravenbauer, and I also serve as a Marshall County Board of Supervisors. So it's a pleasure. I got one problem right off the bat. I guess I'm going to ask. These are the experts over here, folks. So it says in the deal, I'm a celebrity neutral host. I'm not sure what that means, guys, but I appreciate it. You know, I guess somewhere through my career, this is my 7th year serving as Marshall County Board of Supervisors, on the Marshall County Board of Supervisors team. I've also spent 40 years in motorsports, everywhere from the World of Outlaws to NASCAR and Daytona and so on and so on. And for the last 20 years, I was an announcer and a marketer for motorsports. So if I start going too fast, just let me know and I'll slow down, and I won't confuse things. But I spent 20 years announcing, going around in circles. And we always had these kind of microphones. And this is the way I spent most of my 20 years until they come out with this remote stuff. You know, what an invention. But so that's a little bit about me and who we do have here. We also have our representatives from the press that are with us. KFJB man, Chuck Shockley, he's back there.
Hey.
And if you listen to Kicks 101, we got Doris Day with a hot dog in her mouth right now. This is probably the quietest you're ever see her, but Doris is here with us. We've got Bennett Goldstein from the Times Republican that is with us.
Yes.
So, and one thing I want to acknowledge, and let's give a round of applause to volunteers that have helped put this together, because without their help and other support, that would not be possible. I also want to start off tonight by thanking some of our sponsors that have taken part of this tonight's program. The Iowa Federation of Labor, Save the Children Action Network, EMC Insurance, local ABC 5 News, the Iowa Newspaper Foundation, the Iowa Council for the Social Studies, and our local Hy-Vee store where there's a helpful smile in every aisle. Rick Anderson, a very, very strong supporter in our community, and he's the one that helped with the hot dogs, and I'm not sure who cooked the hot dogs. Sherry, I think, did the hot dogs. But so we want to thank all those very fine sponsors for making this night possible. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Tonight, starting at 5:30, just like we did, there's 23 Iowa counties with over 1,200 individuals that are doing this Iowa Youth Caucus program. It's kind of a neat thing that you're part of history with the 23 counties that are doing it. You know, the statewide Youth Caucus is a new initiative led by the Iowa Secretary of State, Paul Pate, and we've got a comment that Paul is going to be telling us here very shortly. And this is a way to bring young people into the political process and encourage participation in public policy discussions.
In case you missed it, my name is Tom Swartz. I'm the chairperson of the Marshall County Democratic Party, an adjunct faculty member here at MCC. I first got involved in Democratic politics in 1972. That was my first caucus. That was the first in the nation Iowa caucus, 1972. So what the heck is the first in the nation caucus mean? Both parties, National Republican and Democratic parties, have allowed Iowa to go first in the nation as a caucus to select the presidential nominees. The first in the nation primary is New Hampshire. We've been doing caucuses, though, in Iowa since 1846, but in 1972, the National Democratic Party created reforms that pushed the caucus way into early January in order to meet the reform deadlines that were part of the National Party headquarters. And that was because in 1968 there were riots at the National Democratic Party convention in Chicago. And young students, minority groups, and women were beaten by police and excluded from participating in the process. So the National Democratic Party created some reforms which were first enacted in 1972, and one of the requirements was that the locations of the caucuses be published. Before that, it was party secret. Just the party activists knew where they were. So just a few people.
And you had to bring a cigar with you.
Yeah, the idea of closed, smoke-filled rooms. Well, the 1972 reforms opened the caucuses wide open, and the caucuses in 1972 for the Democrats selected the person who became the nominee, George McGovern. 1976, they selected Jimmy Carter, who went on to become president in 1976. And subsequently, Republicans and Democrats have had success selecting the President of the United States. And without being first in the nation caucus, Iowa would probably not have much of a voice. But we have the opportunity here in Iowa to be involved and to make history with our selections. While I think there are about 19 states that have caucuses these days, some states have a combination where they elect delegates to the National Convention with a primary, and then some with a caucus. Iowa is one of the few states that it's all caucuses selecting. So that's a very brief history of the Iowa caucuses. It's something special. It was something maybe somewhat accidental, but here we are. We've been doing it since 1972, and so far, both the National Republican and Democratic parties have supported this effort.
My name is Pete Rogers. I'm the chair of the Marshall County Republican Central Committee. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about political activism and caucuses in the future. Have any of you worked for a candidate in the past, local, federal, county level? Raise your hand. Done any door knocking? Okay. Have you done any advocacy work where there maybe was an issue that you were interested in and you went out and tried to get support for a particular issue or against some position of something that was of importance to you? Raise your hand. Okay? So not very many. What we have here with the caucus is the greatest opportunity for you to impact what takes place in a presidential race than you can imagine. Primaries are quaint, primaries are efficient, but primaries are not an avenue through which people like you get access to candidates and can ask them questions face-to-face, one-on-one, over the kitchen table, if you will, in places like Cecil's or Legends or the library or anything like that. You don't have access in a primary state like New York or California. However, those states have a lot of political muscle. They've got a lot of delegates to their national conventions. They hold a lot of weight in the Electoral College in selecting the presidential candidate, but they don't have access to deciding who the candidates are. And that's what the caucus/primary process is all about. Right now, there are upwards of almost 300 people who have filed papers with the Federal Election Commission to run for president. We don't hear about 300 of them. But typically, everybody recognizes that there's 15 Republicans as well as 3 Democrats that are still in the race. Some of those names that you've heard about that are no longer running, for example, Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal suspended his campaign. Technically, he's still running. He's still a candidate. It's a nuance that he has, I think, so that he could later, if he chose to, re-enter the race without refiling. But these candidates are in a state like Iowa because they can meet in groups of 10, in groups of 50, in groups of 100. And hear your concerns face-to-face, get questions asked, write to them. Very, very hard for them to get by with a pat answer, a quote. So it's not an election with sound bites and flyers and things like that. It's actual door-knocking type of an election. It's really, really powerful. because in Iowa we get to tell them what's important. We get to set the stage as to what issues are going to be paramount as they run for office. And what's important to Iowans is going to be drastically different than what's important in other geographies of the state, the East Coast to the West Coast, the South as opposed to the Plains. Why is that important? If we do not have a caucus, those candidates don't come here, we don't have impact on what the issues are, we become definitely a flyover state. So the fact that you're here learning about this, the fact that you're here, maybe it's just for credit purposes, maybe it's just out of curiosity, maybe it's because you are really politically inquisitive and want to see what's going on. I challenge you to take this information, digest it. You're going to get a good exposure to what it's about, but on February 1st, the actual caucuses take place. Who's going to be of voting age in November 2016? How old are you? 16. Oh my goodness. He's got more face hair than I do. Son of a gun. All right. So almost all of you are going to have the opportunity to vote in November, which means you have the opportunity to caucus February 1st. Come to the caucus. Fill up the card. Bring your parents. Bring your relatives. Come to the caucus and help shape what your party stands for and what candidates are going to be on the ballot in November. If we don't engage in the caucus system, the National Republican Party and the National Democrat Party are not going to be inclined to continue to give us this favored status of being first in the nation with the caucus. As soon as we start disregarding the benefits of the caucus, it will go away and we'll never see a presidential candidate in the state again. So I'm glad that you're here. It's very important and look forward to working with you throughout the night, and my microphone is now on.
Now do we want to show the film, the CD that you've got and from our candidates? And
No, we're just going to show the first one.
you're just going to show the first one, okay.
I'm Sabrina. I'm at the Global 5 News here in Des Moines, Iowa, and I'm joined with Secretary Paul Pate. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so we're here to talk about Caucus 101. Tell us a little bit about what it is.
Well, we're excited about it. This is an opportunity for young people to get firsthand knowledge and working experience with what Iowa's caucuses are. We're first in the nation. It's a very important role, and we wanted to give them that chance. It's designed by Iowa teachers for Iowa students. Basically, it's a 7-part program that can be used in the schools when the teachers want to fit it into their regular schedules. And then we top it off with a straw poll, just like the real caucuses.
It's so real.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us what some of the main ideas and concepts are that you want students to take away from this.
Well, we need to understand that, first, it is a very important role we Iowans have. The nation is looking to us to do more than just select the president. What we're doing is we're helping identify what's important not only to Iowans, but Americans. We're also helping give the media an opportunity to kind of look at these candidates in a different way than going off and having to buy all commercials. They're actually one-on-one with them and getting the message out. We're also talking about what we want out of the next president. We're actually telling them what's important, and that's what Iowans get a chance to do. And these young people are going to do it at an earlier age than perhaps their parents even did it in regards to that. Keying in on the fact that times have changed. Social media is much more important today to young people, and so they're looking at information in a different way. So that's why we did the Caucus 101. It's designed to be online with the teachers and the students, and even you, us adults, we can go on and look at it as well.
Okay, so tell us your goals behind creating Caucus 101.
We want to reach as many young people as we can in the state. We have over 2,000 social studies teachers and government teachers that we've reached out to and told them about the program, invited them to be part of it. We'd like to see thousands of young people step into this and get a first-hand taste, if you will, of what a caucus is. By going online, we're giving them the various information they need. We also have a nice feature. The candidates themselves, the presidential candidates, have filmed a message to these young people, so they get to see that message. I'm a skeptic there a little because I think in Iowa everybody should have met a presidential candidate. They're about everywhere.
I feel like they have. I'm sure they have somewhere.
But we make it simpler for them. We put it right there on the online version.
Okay, Secretary Pate, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Calling all caucus goers.
I'll talk to you later.
It's time to learn about the Iowa Republican Caucus. There is no need to worry. This video will teach you how to participate. Caucuses have been held in the state of Iowa since it was established, but in 1972, the media began to focus on the state, and Iowa became the first in the nation. What makes the Iowa caucuses so important is that they're famous for weeding out the losers from winners and for setting the stage for the rest of the presidential election. Just about the only thing that the Democratic and Republican caucuses have in common is the fact that they're held on the same day. Each state political party has a unique caucus system that works to choose the national delegates from Iowa. Let's explore the Republican caucus. On caucus night, registered Republicans check in at their caucus location. Voters who aren't registered with the party may do so on caucus night. Be sure to bring your ID, as some precincts require proof of residence. After checking in, the caucus goers are tasked with 4 things. First, they vote in the famous caucus poll. The caucus poll is what causes all the excitement and national interest. But other activities happen at the caucus as well. Caucus goers also elect delegates to attend the county convention, submit planks to their county party, and elect members to their respective county party central committees, typically 2 from each precinct. Confused? Not to worry. Maybe an example will help. Caucus goers start off by discussing presidential candidates. Neighbors ask neighbors, friends talk to friends, sisters convince brothers, all trying to persuade each other that theirs is the best candidate for president. You can speak up if you'd like, or just listen. No pressure either way. Then, they cast their secret ballot by writing their chosen candidate's name on a blank piece of paper, or a ballot prepared by the county party. Votes are tallied and shared with the press. The caucus poll results are a media delight and make national news that evening. After voting for president, some participants leave, but others stay to hear nominations from the floor and to choose who will represent their precinct at the county convention. With the caucus poll and the delegate selection complete, the focus shifts from the development of the Republican Party to Iowa's issue platform. The Republican Party's process is a concerted grassroots effort that works from the bottom to the top. It's fairly easy to influence the party platform. All you have to do is speak up. Concerned individuals voice their proposed issue planks, and the precinct caucus decides which to adopt and which to leave on the cutting room floor. This is a great opportunity to have a big influence on issues important to you and your community. After caucus night, the Republican Party of Iowa begins its convention process. The convention process is a bit like climbing a mountain. Victorious delegates make the climb from precinct caucus to the county and state conventions, finally ending up at the national convention, where they join delegates from all 50 states to nominate the party's candidates for president. There's no need to worry about participating in the Iowa Republican caucus. It's easy to be a caucus goer. You just have to cast your caucus poll vote for the candidate you support. By participating, you can influence the outcome of this year's presidential election. Calling all caucus goers, it's time to learn about the Iowa Democratic Caucus. There is no need to worry. This video will teach you how to participate. Caucuses have been held in the state of Iowa since it was established, but in 1972, the media began to focus on the state, and Iowa became the first in the nation. What makes the Iowa caucuses so important is that they're famous for weeding out the losers from winners, and for setting the stage for the rest of the presidential election. Just about the only thing that the Democratic and Republican caucuses have in common is the fact that they're held on the same day. Each state political party has a unique caucus system that works to choose the national delegates from Iowa. Let's explore the Democratic caucus. On caucus night, registered Democrats check in at their caucus location. Voters who aren't registered with the party may do so at their caucus. After checking in, organizers announce the candidate viability number. This number is important because candidates who do not meet the viability threshold do not receive delegates. Next, participants begin their delegate assignment process. This is what causes all the excitement and national interest. To assign delegates to each presidential candidate, caucus participants complete 3 steps. 1. Pick a presidential candidate preference by dividing into preference groups depending on which candidate they support. 2. Determine group viability by using the viability threshold that was announced at the beginning of the caucus, and if necessary, realign candidate preference groups if candidates are determined to be non-viable. 3. Assign delegates to represent each group's candidate who will later go on to represent the precinct at the county convention. Caucus goers also discuss platform resolutions to be submitted to the county platform committee and elect committee members to represent the precinct. After caucus night, the Iowa Democratic Party begins its convention process. The delegates in Iowa begin the convention climb. They move from precinct caucus to the county and state conventions, finally ending up at the national convention, where they join delegates from all 50 states to nominate their party's candidate for president. There's no need to worry about participating in the Iowa Democratic Caucus. It's easy to be a caucus goer. You just have to show up and stand with the candidate you support. By participating, you can influence the outcome of this year's presidential election.
Let me have the students raise your hand, because we have to get a viability number. Let me raise your hand so I can spot the students from the rest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
But just to clarify, it's all the students, because you're going to go through both
All
caucuses.
the students,
Wait
every
a
student.
second, well, you're going to go through both caucuses.
Both caucuses.
Okay, so you don't declare I'm a Democrat or a Republican. Just want to
Every
clear that
student,
up.
but I think you're just, have we got any students in the back there? I just count 20 students, is that right?
Correct.
Sherry Kokenauer, could you raise your hand, please? She's the city clerk. She's also co-chair of the Marshall County Republicans. She's confirming your information. We've gotten you credentialed. We don't have the best record retention when you signed up in your classrooms. Those forms didn't photocopy all that well. She's got a form that we need to confirm your name and address on so that we can communicate officially with the Secretary of State's office so they know the level of participation throughout the state.
My name is Deanne Raymond. I'm the auditor and recorder for Marshall County and Commissioner of Elections. So I got involved because they asked me if I would be wanting to be involved in this, and I said yes. So that's how I got here.
So what's your job here today?
Just to meet people, kind of walk around and greet, and if there's any questions on elections or any of that type of thing in our office that I can help with.
I hope that you'll stay involved. The Iowa caucuses are hugely important. I hope that you get involved and stay involved in the political process. It will be rewarding for you, and it'll be important for the democracy.
Thank you for participating in Caucus 101 and the Iowa Youth Caucuses.
Thank you all for participating in the Caucus 101 program, and I urge all of you who can to vote in the Iowa caucuses on February 1st.
Thank you so much for participating in Caucus 101 and in the Iowa Youth Caucuses. It's truly inspiring to see so many young people across your state getting involved and excited about choosing the next president. Iowa plays a critical role in our elections. As the first state to hold a caucus, Iowa has the ability to send a clear message to the rest of the country about which candidate best represents our values.
I've been visiting Iowa a lot recently because your state is critical to the presidential election. It's the first state to have a caucus, which is where Republican voters come together in February and select the delegates who will go on to the Iowa State Convention and choose which Republican they want to be the nominee, the person they want to face off against the Democratic nominee in the general election in November of 2016. I know that seems like a really long way away, but this is a really important process for students like you, who are the future of our country and who will go to school and start working in a country led by our next president. I encourage you to think about the type of country you want to live in and to watch the candidates closely over the next few months to see who is best positioned to lead our country in that direction.
Get involved in the caucus. The caucus is a great experiment in democracy. It's just not voting, it's showing up and listening before you vote. Let's protect the caucus. I think they're trying to take away our caucus. You're lucky to live in Iowa where you have a chance to see everybody running for president. All of us come here because you're the first in the nation.
I'm standing in front of the Iowa State Capitol, which, by the way, I just want to tell you, is one of the most beautiful state capitals in all of America. But it's here in Iowa that it will be the center of the political universe come February when the Iowa caucus is happening.
I want to thank y'all for participating in Iowa Youth Caucus and Caucus 101.
You know, the most important thing is your future, of course, and being involved in the political process is absolutely critical.
Secretary Paul Pate, for giving me the opportunity to participate in Caucus 101. I'm sure many of the videos that you're going to be seeing are going to talk about how important every vote is. Well, let me tell you, as someone who participated in the caucus in 2012 that that is absolutely true. On caucus night, I lost the caucus by 8 votes. That's right, out of 130,000+ votes cast. The difference between Mitt Romney and I was 8 votes. It wasn't until about 2.5 weeks later that it was discovered I was the winner by 38 votes. Let me assure you that when it came to that election night, we came just short. It made all the difference. All votes make a difference. And so that's why I encourage each and every one of you to register and vote on caucus night. Look forward to your support.
We all want to make America great again, and therefore it's so important that you caucus at the Iowa Youth Caucus and caucuses all over the state on February 1st. Together we can do something very, very special.
Madam Secretary is going to keep record of the results, but I'm simply going to ask you to raise your hand when I say a name. You can only vote 4 times. All those for Joshua Morrow, raise your hand. Raise them, please. Our top 4 are
Josh Morrow, 17, David Blum, 18, Jerry Johnson, 11, and Clay Martin, 9.
Okay. Congratulations. Now, Chair would open up the floor for nominations for alternates. We get to elect 2. Gives you a chance to write down the heart of what you're after and then the rationale for it. Why do you think this is the right thing to do? If you have turned yours in, come up here, get another sheet for the Democratic caucus, stretch your legs.
Hi, I'm Dean Fisher. I'm state representative for District 72, which is the southern and western halves of Marshall County and all of Tama County and a little part of Black Hawk. And I'm here just tonight to meet some of the kids here at the Youth Caucus and support the effort and just do what I can to encourage the kids to get involved in the actual caucus as well and learn more about the whole process.
We're going to be able to participate in the Democratic caucus. It's different than the Republican caucus. We have a temporary chair and secretary, and we elect a permanent chair and secretary, as Pete mentioned in the Republican caucus.
I think we can skip that. They've gone through that.
You've gone through that. We need to have speakers for each of the 3 candidates that are here.
My name is Alex Rico Gomez, and I am a high schooler at Gilbert and a volunteer with the Bernie Sanders office in Ames.
My name is Ben Chow. I'm with the O'Malley campaign. I am our constituent outreach and operations director for the state.
I hope you will get involved in this election. Everybody tells you, you're the future of our country. Well, you know what? You are. And we are stronger when your voices are heard.
One of the joys of being in the Democratic caucus is that you get to move around. You get to yank on people and say, come join me. We have the 4 candidates, the 3 candidates' names up here, plus undecided over in that corner. Hillary's in this corner, Bernie's in this corner, O'Malley's in that corner, and undecided. We need to have you get into groups, and it takes 3 to be viable. That is, if you have just 3 in a group, you get 1 delegate. We have to run the numbers to figure out how many delegates you get, and you may find that you're short 2 people in order to get a delegate, and you can go talk to another group and see if they come over and be with you, so you got a full delegate. Like for example, if you have 5 people, you get 1 delegate. If you have 8 people, you get 2. We're talking about viability. There's a whole math problem in this. So we're going to go around and we'll do an initial viability check with you. See how many is in your group, how many you get. Then we'll give you some time to see if you want to invite somebody from another group to join you. When you get done, and we'll check your viability, then you will choose the delegate that will represent your candidate in the county convention.
The fourth is undecided, further down there, meaning you don't know yet who you support.
That's
and
right.
It's okay to go into that group, and if there's enough, if you have at least 3, you can have a delegate for that. The other thing I want to point out is that this information, just like the Republican results, are going to go to Des Moines tonight. So are these. It's going to be on the news. You're going to make news. It's going to be on the news tomorrow about how the Iowa Youth Caucus delegates lined up for their preferences and for their polling. So look for the news tomorrow. You're going to help make it today, and there's going to be perhaps some fallout in the actual presidential.
Well, I think there will be. And in your group, you choose the delegates, not somebody else's group. You choose your delegates and you report them to Sue, and over here we'll mark them. Sherry will mark them on there as delegates, and then we'll get you up front. Okay, let's move. Everybody's got to get up and move around.
One more. If you were elected a delegate in the Republican group, you're still eligible for all of this, okay? Because now you're Democrats, everybody.
Hey, we changed. Now you're Democrats. Yep.
So
Go find your group and hang around in your group.
My name is Mark Smith, and I'm state representative for Marshalltown, Albion, Green Mountain, and Lipscomb, Iowa, and also the Democratic leader in the Iowa House of Representatives. I'm here tonight because the caucuses are such a critical importance to Iowa and to the nation, being the first state to make a decision on who our next president should be. And this is an effort to have young people become involved in the caucus process. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to meet young people and to encourage them to participate in this activity.
So was there a consensus on the 2 delegates?
Right here.
Everybody's in agreement?
Yes. Okay. Who's one that can be an alternate? Garrett. Delegate?
I don't know that's Garrett. For the Trojans.
Let's get back and we'll make the announcements.
Does everybody have a clean one of these, the official mock caucus resolution submission form? Everybody has a new one? You had those for the Republican platform, and this is for the Democratic platform. So you can, if you want to introduce topics to discuss, this will be done in the precinct location typically, and after the preferential polling, which is what you experience by standing in the corners, etc., then you move to the caucus platform discussion. And this is where it can get controversial. This is what a lot of people come to caucus for. By God, I'm going to go introduce it. Whatever it is that's in their heart, their passion, a lot of times that's what brings them to the caucus. And that's where the enthusiasm and energy flows quite often into the Democratic Party and the Democratic caucus. So, take a few minutes to write a caucus platform. Okay, a proposal that you think ought to be policy of this nation. All right, listen, Democrats always get accused of being leftists. So would you pass the forms to the right tonight? The caucus, Democratic caucus, then typically would, at this point, elect the 2 Democratic members to the county precinct committee. And by the way, these are in state law, what the Republican Party and Democratic Party is supposed to do on caucus, when the caucus is to elect delegates from each precinct, 2 from each precinct.
Let's have the delegates come up. Bring your chair up and sit up here.
Republican, all the Democrat planks have been collected?
Yeah, they're over here.
Okay. Republican delegates and alternates, the 6 of you, if you come up here, figure out what you want to do with your planks.
And why don't you sit over in here?
You got 15 minutes, then we'll give the Democrats 15 minutes.
And let's have the Democratic 6 come over here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to open up the discussions here pretty quick. I think we're going to start off with international affairs. Feel free to chime in anytime you would like. So there's been a proposal to destroy ISIS
important that as we look at addressing ISIS, we need to be clear in our objectives, militarily and culturally, and how we're reaching out to the Syrian people to win their hearts and minds over from the radical extremists and the Islamic sects that seek violence and destruction.
The government needs to have less control on our lives, and this is a big deal because we are an independent country.
Motion for a vote on eliminating ISIS.
Raise them up high, please.
Everyone can vote, all the participants here in the youth caucus can vote.
A motion to vote for the reform on education.
Is there something specific there?
To lower tuition costs, perhaps.
Well, not perhaps. Which one are you reading?
I don't know the education.
Okay. Then let him make the motion. So he can read the resolution.
Okay. College tuition should be lowered in general, and the college system should be reformed to reflect skills needed.
Okay. That's the resolution that's before the body. Those in favor of that resolution, raise your hand. Raise them up so they can be counted, please.
So I did education. It seemed that most people kind of split on whether college tuition should be made free or whether it should be made, or whether it should just be lowered. And it seemed that most people agreed that college tuition was stopping people from getting jobs and from living life without debt.
I believe that we should, as we agree with the Republicans, that the rates should be lowered for college education so it's more affordable. And as an agreement between the Democrat Party, we believe that graduates should be coming out of college with debt-free so they're able to get on with their lives and not worry about that problem for the next 30 years.
I got 17. Opposed, no. Motion carried. That goes on to the Democratic platform. You want to pass it to the next reporter.
I have the affordable health care, and between the two papers that I had, they agreed that it should be, people should be able to go in and have affordable health care and not have to worry about paying bills, which that stops people from, they don't want to go in and get the help that they need because they know they can't afford that, and we shouldn't have that problem in America.
I had various topics of immigration. One was about the immigration was separating families, and it says that they are running away from crime. I completely disagree with this statement because I think they should pay for their crimes and not be able to run away from them.
So this topic says label GMOs, save the bees and endangered species, smaller government, less departments, get rid of Obamacare, let healthcare be fair, the right to life from womb to tomb, bear arms, support it, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Again, that's not necessarily from a Democratic point of view, I think, but so I don't really know where I'm supposed to go. Am I supposed to just read them, or?
No, you
say my opinion?
summarize the topics. Just say, I got comments on this topic, just in the interest of time.
Okay, well that's it.
Okay. Let me just say that one of the things about party platforms, at least in the Democratic Party, is that they can be general in nature. They can be introduced and voted upon. In fact, quite often they start specific and get general during the county convention because a lot of people speak up and don't like a certain specific idea. So quite often the vote is, yeah, we need to do something to dramatically decrease the cost of going to college. That might end up as an example of a party platform position. Whereas some members going to the Democratic caucus might introduce a platform, a plank at a county precinct and say, we believe all public community colleges and universities should be tuition-free, paid for by the government. And so somebody might do that, it might be debated, might be adopted, might be generalized to reduce cost based on the vote that takes place at the precinct, where amendments can be introduced and amended, or platforms can be introduced and amended, and then it turns into something that the body will support as a whole. So
it's called the process of compromise. Essentially, you start with a very strict idea, but in order for it to get legs to move forward, sometimes you have to give a little to get part of your loaf of bread.
I believe, unless I'm knowing my history wrong, it was James Madison in Federalist 10 who claimed that the factions are the best way, and in our case, it's the political parties to stop one party from dominating the other. And that's what we have here today, is that we've come together to discuss our ideas, as opposed to having one party that lords over the others, as in other countries where they don't have freedoms and only one political party is allowed and one ideology is dominant. The minority rights are oppressed in that case.
The Federalists and the Anti-Federalists that argued about whether we should adopt the Constitution, created the separation of philosophies there. And guess what? We're still arguing about that today. The Republican Party and the Democratic Party arguing about the role of government, whether it's government in Washington or other levels. But it is a significant heritage that we have gotten from the adoption of the Constitution.
It's from the inception of the human race. Two people don't agree. By that very nature, they're on opposite sides of an issue. They are de facto competing political parties. In my estimation, the only world in which political parties wouldn't exist would be a world where everybody agreed, either through coercion or utopia. And I don't see either of those happening, because liberty and freedom are too dear, at least to those people that reside in the United States of America. So
I think Pete and I do probably agree, though. It'd be great if you young people could do a lot better job than we're doing right now in terms of...
Tom, you're doing a great job.
In terms of understanding that we can disagree agreeably and not attack the dignity and the motives of people because they have a different philosophy about policy. If you guys could perfect that better than we have of our generation, that would be good for you. Bravo for you.
History question, or first observation on your point. Raise your hand if you think politics today is dirty. Dirtier than it was in the 1800s?
I don't know too much about that.
I wasn't alive then either. But believe it or not, back in the day, newspapers were a hugely, hugely powerful voice in politics. And there would be headlines that said things to the effect, when is it that Abraham Lincoln quit beating his wife? That's how politics was done then. That's pre-internet, that's pre-Facebook, that's pre-Twitter, that's that's smoke signal time, right? But as dirty as it is now, it's because it's our only experience and because there's more avenues through which to communicate. The ugliness of the political combat has existed forever. The Roman Senate, the same way. They solved it by killing their emperors. We don't do that here. Neatest thing in my mind, about the American experiment into representative democracy is, as much as people disagree, every transition has been peaceful. Elections don't end up with cities being burnt to the ground. The only thing that came close to it was succession over the issue of slavery. But even that was done through political process. They succeeded. One side decided, we're not going to let you succeed, so we're sending some troops your way. But the American experiment is so successful because it allows for peaceful transition of power and leadership and control over the different branches of government. And as much as I would like the dirtiness to go away too, part of the failing of human nature, and it's part of the failing of when power and wealth are involved with it. There's a lot at stake, so there's a lot of punches that are not held back, and I wish they wouldn't. I wish that we were all gentler, kinder people. But as Tom said, you folks have a great opportunity to start leading that corrective swing of the pendulum, and I encourage you to do so.
I'm sitting there in the audience and just kind of listening to you folks, and it just amazes me that you guys are thinking this aggressive, progressive. You know, the one question, first of all, I'm just going to start it off by, what did you actually learn by going through the caucus process? And if you want to just pass the mic and just, whoever wants to talk, you seem like a talker, you're a talker, you're a talker, and they have phones in their hands, so I guess that's kind of neat. But tell us what you found interesting in the caucus.
Well, I didn't know originally that this caucus is as big a deal as it is. I think it's interesting that we can come together and see different viewpoints and learn more about different sides of the parties and different candidates' ideas and about certain topics.
And go ahead and just pass it down. I know you'll have something to say.
I just want to say I think it's a really neat experience for us to come out here and learn about the caucus, because what you normally hear at our age is the things you hear in your household from your parents or maybe at school from the teachers and kids around you. But really to get involved with people, community leaders, it's really nice to get that opportunity to come out here and do that.
We just pass it down. I know she's shaking her head.
I wasn't shaking.
Well, no, that's good.
Other than it's awesome that we've opened up a civil debate here and that we're friends, even though we disagree on some issues. And I think it's just cool to see how the different sides of the caucus are run and how that affects us. And as we run meetings in our own lives, I've seen that with my friends. I'm like, why are you all standing by the candidates you like? Oh, that's how you run your caucus. That's pretty cool, and that affects how we run our civil discourse in the future. And so that we can sit down and talk and be friends here means that we can continue that discussion on in the future.
Like Clay said, I didn't really, sorry, I didn't know your name. I'm currently in government right now, and I've been learning about like all this different stuff and everything, but it's really cool like actually seeing it in action, and it is a confusing process. And I didn't realize how confusing it actually is.
And, you know, you say it's confusing, but how many people don't go through this experience
Exactly.
and then go to vote,
And they
don't know really what they're voting on?
Yeah, you learn so much more when you're part of a caucus, and pretty much like other people have said, you get to see different people's point of views, and people have been pretty civil about it, which is awesome. That's always
Well,
nice.
you want to argue? Because we got a few minutes.
No,
I'm going to get you guys in an argument yet before this is over. Because
I don't like arguing.
Well, we're not arguing. We're arguing in a very positive
She's in
way.
debate. She can argue.
She looks like an arguer.
Yeah.
Yes, she looks like an arguer.
You want to see Mike?
I think it's crazy how I believe it's 20% of Americans vote out of the entire population, and that's a very small percentage.
You know what's also amazing is we had 53 people that signed up for tonight. We got 18 or 20. And basically what we figured, about 30%. When we do city and county elections, we get about 38-40%. If we're lucky. And the people that don't vote are the ones that say, well, he shouldn't be in office, they shouldn't be in office. And so any more experiences get the mic out of this guy.
I knew that the Iowa caucus was an important thing, but I didn't know that one of the most important things was that it allowed the American citizens to be presented with what the issues are and to tell not just the federal government, but the whole nation what's important to them.
Going back to what you said, like, if you are going to be able to vote in this next election, we're going to be the youngest generation who's going to be voting. And I think that's an awesome experience to be able to get right out of high school and to have the privilege to vote. What else was I going to say? I think it has been a really great experience, like everyone has said. And I think you get to learn more and hear other people's opinions you come here like really strict on something that you thought, that doesn't mean you can't listen to other people and that you can't be wavered in your opinions.
So what are you guys going to take from this caucus experience?
I'm going to take other people's views. Other people's views, like
You're going to take other people's
get into
views
consideration for what I believe myself.
and try to put them together?
Yeah.
And so you're going to take her views and try to make them work with yours?
Well, we have pretty much the same views, so.
I'm ready to do the actual caucus.
You're ready to get in there and try it.
How many of you know if your parents have caucused before? Okay. How many of you feel better empowered to convince your parents of the importance of caucusing?
You know, we all got good ideas. You know, county-wise, we all got good ideas of what we should do, but to implement them.
The caucus is a good way to speak to those.
You got it. You hit it right on the head.
This is going to be, for most of us at least, this is going to be our first election where we actually get a vote, and I think we just want to be as informed as we possibly can. And stuff like this, like just this mock caucus that we were a part of today has helped us inform us where we're at with our stance. And it makes us understand how important everything else in this whole election actually is. And just the more informed we are, the more we feel that we made the right decision, I think.
And the right decision will, the ending of that decision will
Or
happen.
like what we wanted, who we
Exactly, exactly.
Even though sometimes candidates say things and they don't get in there and do it, I think they have the right motives, and even if they don't get through, it's not always the president who's having that issue. I think we also need to start getting more involved in the Congress and the Senate elections as well, because they are the ones who are passing the bills and passing the laws, and they are also just as important as the presidential election.
We're going to challenge you guys because we love what you're saying. Now let's back it up and really do something with it, because that's what it's going to take, right? All right, hey, we're done. 8:15. Thank you guys. Thank you.
I can't imagine if I didn't come here tonight, I would be so much less informed. This was a great thing for all of the people my age. I really hope to see more people at things like this my age in the future. It's really good to be involved, and the more educated you are on the system, the better votes we will have, the better leaders we will have, the more involved we are. So that's what I'd like to say.
What do you think your involvement is going to be from there?
I think my involvement is going to be very high from the future. I will definitely be voting, and I encourage everyone to do so. But most importantly, get involved. The more you get involved, the more important it even becomes to vote.
I was probably just a few years old, slapping W's on buttons and handing them out, and I didn't really know the issues, but I kind of grew up. I'm like, well, I was on the campaign door knocking there with my brothers when I was really little, and I stayed involved and actually grown to know the issues and to know how to debate, and stayed with that in school. And I think it really helps to know how to convey your ideas in a civil manner to your friends and people you're with. I felt like I got to know both sides, and being able to see them right next to each other was good, and to be able to understand that we're both in the same process and that we're both looking for the same goals of making our voice heard.